Good morning, grand risings to you. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. And guess it is exactly 9 a.m. GMT, and I am absolutely delighted to be here with you. How are you all? I see you're all very, very, very busy in the comments. Yes, you are. How lovely to see you all. Bright and early. And I just want to say, whether you can be here live or whether you watch us on playback, you are all welcome. Thank you for being here. I genuinely and truly appreciate it. And you know what time it is, kids? Let's do this. Let's do this. Oh, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. How are you today? I hope you are well. Well, I hope you can hear that because I can't. But, stuff happens. Good morning. Good morning, one and all. I have no idea if you heard that, but I hope you did. Good morning. Good morning to you all. How are you? How are you? Yes. What's the score? Sonia Love says Weeman's dad. Oh, 8 p.m. in Sydney. I saw that we've got some New Zealanders in the house. I think Randy has snow. Wow, amazing, amazing. Good morning. Fox says, I haven't gone to bed yet, so not sure I'll make it in time for this one. Grand risings to you, Kath and Marsh Girl. I hope you're all right, lovely. And Colin and Randy and Synchronized Soul and Crazy Bunny and Sean and Soul Sound and Wellbeing. Kiora from New Zealand. Friday night here. Are you drunk yet, Kiora? Or is that just what Brits do? I don't know. And Marcus, and good morning to you all. And Shalini is having a crappy time on the tube. We're shocked. Clearing out my drawers, says Katie. Blessings from New Zealand, says Steve. Hello, Eric and Peter and SJP and Susan and Randy and Cheryl and Eric. Did I already say Eric? And Maria. Good evening. Hot in Sydney. It is absolutely corkingly freezing here. Robert's in the house. Robert, an update. I told you I'd try yourself. Right, Robert, no, this side. I have had a dry patch here for about 2 years, right? I've been using this week. It's gone. My dry patch is gone. This is from Health Freedom UK. Not a doctor, Robert, but check him out. Really good stuff. I'm going to try it, Robert, on some issues I have with my left foot because it's a salve. Who knows what it can do? Anything's possible. Good morning, Awakened Spirit. Good morning, Heppelwin and Lorna and ABA Holdings. Good morning to you all. And Onward Polly and Swissma and MT70 and Rachel and Fazana and One View Cornwall and Wayne. Good morning to you, love. And Craig. No shout out for Craig, eh? Oh, it's such a pick me. I love my Craigie. And good morning, B and Yvette and Merv and Marlena. Good morning, good rising. Cold in Kent, says Awakened Spirit. Yep, Robert's here. And so is Chris. And that's not life, but not as we know it. Good morning, inmates. Are we in prison? And Paul has worked out that Peter Thiel, or is it Teal? Thiel. Let's go Thiel. Actually is an anagram of the reptile. I see. And Daniel McManus is here from a cold morning in Glasgow. Oh, I bet it's pipey there. Yes, MT70. I did watch some of Matt Hancock at the COVID inquiry yesterday. Absolutely sickening. Good morning, Post Cult and Peter. And who else have we got? Lisa. And so many of you wonderful people. And Vanessa and Maria and London Lady. Thank you. Oh, yeah, my badge. I'm not keeping it on all the time, but there you go. I just want to start the show with it. There you go. Because we do love it, don't we? Right. So how are we all? Oh, wow. I'm so... Yes, Robert, it is. Hey, I'm here, Frank. I'm here. Morning, Mel's. Morning to you all. Of course, we have our two wonderful mods in the house. And lovely Teresa. Teresa is at the Acomb Town Coffee House. Is it Acomb or Acomb? In York, and they're playing this right now. Good morning to you, Teresa. Good morning, York, in the house. Good morning. Thank you, Kiara. Thank you. And James is here, and Sass and Woken Flower. Thanks, Jack. Thank you. Ian, lovely to see you here today. All of you, Brett and Hamish. Absolutely wonderful to have you with us. And yes, we Brits are shivering and preparing for Storm Bert. Oh, yeah. Stormbird, of course it is. And can I just say good morning to Halo, left a lovely comment saying this channel is my oxygen in a restricted world full of polluting news. Thank you, Sonia. Really grateful for your channel. And I am really grateful for you. I'm really grateful for all of you. Yes, you're special. You're all special. Yes, Vanessa, we love Teresa. She's brilliant. So coming up on today's Wake Up, we will be joined by the very lovely journalist Warren Thornton, who will be analysing the real or imagined threat of World War III. And he breaks down what that meeting in number 10 with BlackRock's Larry Fink and Bill Gates was really all about, because I think we're all seeing it quite clearly now. And we'll also be joined by former cop Harry Miller of We Are Fair Cop on why he carried out a citizen's arrest on a police officer. And Sian Hill will be joining us to talk about her latest book, which is about the art and science of creating your reality from the inside out. And she will have a signed copy to give away to one of you lovely peeps. What's not to love about that, eh? Plus, we'll be talking about the Captain Tom Moore fun shame, the C-19 inquiry, and the eternally shameless Matt Hancock. How is he not locked up? And we'll also be talking about how the farmers' protest was infiltrated, Liam Payne's funeral, how social media misinfo is helping censorship. We'll also have quite an extensive geoengineering watch because they've been doing it rather a lot. And you lovely people have kept me up to speed. And we'll end on the pain and the pleasure of wakening. Like literally, when you awaken, it's not all fun and laughter, is it? So we're going to be talking about it. Right. Before we bring in our first guest, let's just reflect on a couple of things. Matt Hancock appeared again at the UK C-19 inquiry yesterday, and he'll be back again today. I struggled to watch him, but I did for a while. It was hard. I swore a lot. I don't understand why he is still walking around. I just find it absolutely baffling. He talked about how he loved the NHS and la-di-la-di-la-di-la-di-la. And actually, the most that they are admitting now is that, well, he won't. He's like, as far as he's concerned, he did everything right and all errors were made by other people, right? And they were talking about how there was a disproportionate amount of people from ethnic minorities who were on the front line during C-19 taking care of people. And he was like, oh, yeah. But the bottom line is, right, is we need absolute criminal liability for ministers and NHS management. We're lacking accountability. That is the reality. And he was not happy that more people wanted to question him. And he was instructed that he had to return again today for 10 a.m. He was not happy at all. But to be clear, this inquiry is not about getting to the truth about C-19. It couldn't possibly. It's a narrative. There's absolutely no way this is about that. And also the terms of reference are now so narrow, they wouldn't be able to anyway. They wouldn't be able to tell you the impact of lockdown, because we've learned that they didn't actually do a risk assessment. Imagine that. You lock down the world and you haven't done a risk assessment. They haven't done a risk assessment because they don't care about the risks. That it was never about that. It was about locking us down. Yes. B, it was very, very hard. Hancock makes me sick as well. MT70 makes me sick to the core. Just quickly, I just want to quickly comment on this farmers' protest this week. So the UK's farmers' protest came to London on Tuesday. It was a miserable day weather-wise, but at least I reckon a minimum of 10K turned up. It was a great turnout, and it would have been perfect if people actually knew that they were there for a bigger agenda. Well, they didn't necessarily know that, but there's a bigger agenda. And I didn't hear one news outlet talk about the UN's 2030 agenda, the net zero madness, or actually the real reason why there are attacks on British farmers. And actually what we saw is a whole load of globalist and WEF stooges who were leading it. Just have a look at this image. So what we had was Kemi Badenoch, or Badenoch. Just because she happens to know what a woman is doesn't mean I'm on the same page as her. But oh no, I am not. She's a globalist. She's a WEFer. She's a jab pusher. As was another name fronting the protest, one Emily Sheffield, David Cameron's sister-in-law, sister of Samantha Cameron, and an overzealous jab pusher. And then there was Ed Davey, Lib Dems Ed Davey, who sold out to all manner of agendas, jab pusher, climate agenda promoter and supporter of the gender agenda, when he once said during a phone-in that a woman could quite clearly have the thing that men have, but I don't want to say it because it will trigger YT. But you know what I'm saying. He actually said women could have one of those. And then there was Jeremy Clarkson, who left people with the impression that farming is about rich people buying land to shoot birds and avoid inheritance tax. These are two things he has said, although he claimed that he said one to avoid saying the other. But the overall impression that was left with the vast majority of people who were reading news because the headlines said it was that farming is about rich people squirreling away their money, right? And it was just awful. Actually, it was really awful. It had all the potential to be absolutely fantastic, but it was infiltrated down to the ground. You cannot rail against the system by using people who helped create the system. It's just not possible. When I have a problem, I don't turn to the people who created the problem in the first place. And that's literally what was happening at that farmers' protest. It's horrible. It was horrible to witness because obviously we really supported it around here. And I still support the farmers. But actually, what we saw were the hardworking farmers who were barely getting by were sidelined for these big names. Big names. Oh, yeah, Clarkson jabbed. Yep, absolutely, he's jabbed. I am Rhesus. Oh, you're talking about somebody else, B. Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's see. But here are the things that people don't know. Did you know, for example, that farmers are one of the groups traditionally more prone to taking their own lives? They are. There's actually statistics for it. 21 farm workers actually, no, it's 36 suicides were registered in England and Wales by those working in farming and agricultural industry in 2021, 2022. It is one of the biggest demographics of people taking their own lives. There are real issues with mental health and all manner of other things. And so, no, I was deeply disappointed with it. Great turnout, fantastic turnout. But actually, it ended up looking absolutely like a globalist push, right? And did she London lady? But the problem is that those were not the big messages. That it almost doesn't matter who was on the ground doing small interviews to go online, right? The big messages were the headlines, and the headlines were that these are very rich people who are buying farms in order to avoid inheritance tax. Pretty damning terrible message. So I think something needs to be done about that. Toot sweet. Right. But obviously they're always going to infiltrate things because it was gathering so much power. Let us bring in our first guest. Let me bring him in. Here he is. Good morning, Warren.
Good morning, Sonia. How are you?
Well, you can hear how I am, Warren. I'm absolutely sick and tired of people infiltrating our system and pretending to be on our side, right? So there you go. But anyway, welcome. Thank you for being here, everybody. It's journalist and presenter Warren Thornton of warrenthornton.com. And I asked Warren here, he was here with us last week, and Warren just cuts through all the BS. And there's a lot of BS to cut through in terms of geopolitics and war right now, isn't there, Warren? And yeah. I mean, our viewers, I want to know what's happening in Russia and Ukraine this week. What is the UK's true involvement? And do we have any real prospect of World War III? And so much more, really, Warren. Where would you like to take it away? I think the idea that we are supplying missiles to shoot into Russia is a good starting point, right?
It is, absolutely. And of course, once you're supplying those weapons, you then need a reason. So basically, we had 10, and if you've listened to David Lammy over the last couple of days, and you've listened to many commentators, they'll tell you all about these North Koreans being in Russia, being in Ukraine, and yet there's no evidence whatsoever. What they're really upset about, Sonia, is that the North Koreans have been trading weapons, shall we say, with Russia, and Russia reports a load of 170 millimeter cannons. Now, at the moment, Russia are winning on all fronts, and they just entered a place called Kupiansk. Now, this is really, really important because these 170 millimeter cannons they have from North Korea can travel 60 miles. And of course, once they get Kupiansk, Kharkiv is only 57 miles away. And then after that, once they capture Hancock, you're talking the distance between Bristol and Newcastle to actually get to Kiev. So it's not that far away. And of course, the British and the Americans are starting to panic because Ukraine are losing ground so quickly. And then what they did was they said, that's fine. You can throw missiles into Russia because obviously North Korea are there. And of course, they're not. But that was the, if you like, the Gulf of Tonkin incident that they wanted. To be able to start throwing storm shadows and attackums into Russia.
It's deeply troubling, of course, because many people are very concerned that these missiles are going to be turned on us, right? And I mean, the sheer volume of people that I've talked to over the last few days in our country, in our nation, who say, I want nothing to do with this, absolutely nothing to do with this. And we are in danger of becoming collateral damage here, are we not, Warren?
We are, but thankfully, and this is where the things get really interesting, Putin is a very clever, very sensible, very based individual. So let me take you through what happened. First of all, we launched 6 attackums, or Ukraine did. But remember, none of these missiles, whether it be the Taurus missile from Germany, whether it be the Storm Shadow, whether it be the attackums or any other missile, can actually be launched without the Americans' help. So none of these missiles, the UK ones, the French ones, the German ones, and obviously the American ones, cannot be launched without the USA's help. So first of all, they launched 6 attackums. 5 of those were taken completely out. 1 of them was damaged and fell and caused some damage. And then, of course, in the UK, with the Ukraine firing them, of course, the UK launched 12 Storm Shadow missiles. And of course, 3 of them got through. 9 of them were taken down, but some Russians did die. Now, they aimed at the North Group communication headquarters, and it actually, they caused some serious damage on the outskirts, but not to it. At this point, Putin decided to unveil a little system called the Oreshnik missile system. Now, this is not an ICBM, so don't panic, everybody. There's been lots of very silly journalism with people going, this is an ICBM, and you think intercontinental ballistic missile. Straight away, you think nuclear war. It is not that. It's a medium-range ballistic hypersonic missile. Now, it travels as one unit, and then it splits off into 6 different hypersonic rockets. Now, this thing travels at Mach 10, or 3 kilometers per second. Just imagine the speed of that. And of course, they very much struck. First of all, they struck a factory that produces missiles for Ukraine. And what Zelensky said, let the missiles do the talking. Well, the Russians certainly did that. And we've got nothing that can take this down. We can't even take Kinzhals out. We certainly can't take this missile system out.
What do you make of the statements that both Zelensky and Putin have made since this?
Putin is absolutely correct. I mean, first of all, look, for instance, at CNN telling an absolute lie. When Russia actually sent and notified 30 minutes before through the Nuclear Risk Reduction Center, which is somebody, if you're going to launch something, you have to let them know, or you should let them know, which is exactly what they did. Now, US keeps saying we're not at war with Russia, but you are at war with Russia, because unless you've got giving the guidance for these, none of these systems can actually be fired. So this is the US without any shadow of a doubt whatsoever. And of course, Karim Jean-Pierre keeps turning around and saying we're not at war with Russia. Well, yes, you are. You're just not. How can I put it? You're hiding behind the cabinet while throwing hand grenades, if you like. And of course, Ukraine have completely panicked. Their government meetings today were completely cancelled because they were worried that another one of these rockets were going to come over. And let's be absolutely honest about this rocket, this missile system, which has now got the West in a panic. It could reach Britain in 19 minutes. It could reach Poland in 8 minutes. It can reach Belgium in 14, France in 12, Finland in 17, and Sweden in 16. This is why Zelensky is having an utter meltdown. And let's not forget that we've also given Ukraine lots of anti-personnel mines, which, of course, Diana would be rolling in her grave. Now, there is a non-nuclear treaty that was walked away from in 2019 by the Americans. And, of course, Russia have turned around and Putin has turned around and said, if you do this, then we're going to carry on doing what we need to do. Now, the White House keeps saying, as I say, it's not an escalation, but they're losing the war, Sonia. Here's a stat for you that you will find staggering. Only 1 in 4 of the Ukrainians fighting on the front are there voluntarily. The rest have all been press ganged.
Terrible.
So, yes, when you had 3/4 of your population that don't want to go and fight, you're never going to win that war. There's no chance. And to give you a clue of how bad it is, 27 people in the last months have tried to swim the River Teesa to get into another country and have drowned.
Dear God, it's absolutely awful. What did you make of on that day that was all happening, that the UK government also made an announcement? In fact, the Defence Secretary, John Healey, announced a range of money-saving cuts to our military, to warships, to helicopters and drones. So we are depleting our own defences while supporting other people's? Is that what's going on?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, Boris Johnson, Sonia, has been making a load of statements, saying that we're going to have to send troops in. And Healy was turning around and saying, well, if there's not enough troops, the public are going to have to go and fight. Good luck with that one. There is no appetite for this war whatsoever. And indeed, after Boris Johnson made these 2 interviews over a week ago, and this is quite staggering, over 780 people in all 3 services have turned around and said they have now put their papers in and wish to leave the Army, the Navy and the Royal Air Force.
Wow.
So as a recruitment tool, it's not working too well.
There's a comment here which neatly brings me to our next point. Captain Flint says, Russia, Britain, Ukraine and everyone else, all the same people. It's a gang show. And I think this image on its own kind of exemplifies that. Of course, this is a tweet that Keir Starmer tweeted last night and has everybody in uproar. I'm determined to deliver growth, create wealth and put more money in people's pockets. This can only be achieved by working in partnership with leading businesses like at BlackRock to capitalize on the UK's position as a world leading hub for investment. And of course, these are the images that were taken when Larry Fink from BlackRock and Bill Gates were in Parliament back in October, and FOIs have been sent to Parliament about what they were there for. And I think we now know. How does it all tie in?
Well, it all ties in quite well with Ukraine and everything else that's going on. Let's not forget that the Labour Party received £500,000 from big pharma lobbyists. They have promised farmland to companies in this 20 billion Green New Deal. Obviously, Bill Gates and Larry Fink were invited to Downing Street. Now, BlackRock, through proxies, owns 60,000 hectares of Ukrainian land. Alex Zoros actually owns about 10,000 hectares that he's earmarked for, would you believe, toxic waste of all things. Now, BlackRock and JP Morgan have said they will rebuild Ukraine. Trevor Chin, he gave £50,000 to Keir Starmer to do his leadership bid. He gave £200,000 to the Shadow Cabinet. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves, her of the I'm not really an economist, was paid £17,000 to travel to Israel. The EDM escalation, which was basically to do a ceasefire, only 4 of the 79 MPs voted for that, and they're 79 MPs that take money from Israel. Gary Lubner, the South African auto glass magnate, and the United Jewish Israel Appeal gave $5 million to the party just before. Starmer personally signed off on the 12 Storm Shadows launched into Ukraine. Israel has the right to withhold power and water to Gaza, he said. I can do business with the WEF. Obviously, he'd rather be in Davos. He's allowed paedophiles repeatedly to escape jail sentences, over 4,100 to date, whilst jailing anyone disagreeing. He signed off on bombing Gaza by providing hundreds of targeting flights from Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus.
What a charge sheet, Warren.
And BlackRock, Edinburgh. They bought Edinburgh Airport, Scottish Widows. And before they even came into power, oil companies and dodgy arms dealers had a meeting with Starmer's Labour Party. And of course, they were asked to say exactly who those people were they were having the meeting with. And they completely turned it down, saying, we're not in power. We don't have to tell you.
So, as I say, a charge sheet, the man should be arrested, almost certainly
Yes.
charged and convicted and banged up. But that's not the world we're currently living in, but hopefully before our lifetime is through. But here's the thing, Warren, right? Obviously, going back to Ukraine, the reason obviously that it all ties in is Ukraine is vast agricultural lands, isn't it? And obviously BlackRock, as you say, are heavily invested. So all of this all ties in, doesn't it? It's not a coincidence, is it, that Keir Starmer tweeted that last night?
No, none at all. Remember that they bought all this, and of course, Russia are currently sitting on $17 trillion worth of land that BlackRock already wanted, and of course, there's another $10 trillion of land that will eventually go over to the Russians, because the Russians will want the atoll blasts. And they will also want, they will be keeping Crimea. That's going nowhere, and they will also want Odessa, because they won't want Ukraine having a port on the Black Sea, because Ukraine, when they were doing the grain deal with Russia, were actually smuggling weapons on the grain ships back.
I mean, it is actually shocking. I'm going to read you some of this. Perhaps you can answer this. HK says, are BlackRock going to buy British farmland too? Of course, we had the farmers' protest this week. Many of us felt that it was deeply infiltrated by globalists and wefers. So they're after our farmland, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely, because there is a £20 billion Green New Deal. And of course, there are plans to build on 200 acres of each of the 200 farms to put solar farms on there, of course. And of course, BlackRock are heavily invested in that. And of course, they have a £20 billion Green New Deal. And of course, they took the money away from pensioners. They said there's a 22 billion black hole. But isn't it strange that 22 billion pounds worth of investment from foreign companies is coming in to fill that black hole?
So strange. I mean, it's almost a coincidence. And also, what do you make of these arrest warrants regarding Netanyahu?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's very, very simple, Sonia, isn't it? It doesn't matter what flag you're standing under. If you kill a child, you're a war criminal. You know, very, very simple. I don't care whether you're English, whether you're Israeli, whether you're German, whether you're Hezbollah, whichever. And very, very simply, now the arrest warrants are out there. But of course, you have to remember that you are talking 79 of the Labour MPs take money from the Israel lobby and have indeed been on fact-finding missions. 60%, sorry, of the previous Conservative cabinet also take money from the Israel lobby, as do 70% of the Congress.
Terrible, completely compromised. I mean, there's there's no getting around it at all. But I think the good thing, so here's the thing. Do you think that we're being psyoped again and wound up and driven to fear with this whole idea of World War III?
Yes, we are. And thank God there's people like Orban and Putin out there, because to be honest, if you did a poll right now, you'd probably find that people would take Orban or Putin like a shot over our current leaders. And of course, they have to escalate this before Trump gets in, because once Trump cuts the funding to Ukraine, you're done. And of course, there's going to be no frozen conflict, because the Russians, I was talking to the Chinese embassy a couple of days ago, and I'm due there in a few days' time. And the drone technology that is coming in shows that Ukraine cannot win. I mean, China, for instance, I was with a friend of mine, and we were both, invited to the Chinese embassy. They can put 75,000 drones in the air at once.
Good Lord.
And control all.
Good Lord. So do you think all of this is happening at this great speed, as you say, to achieve this before Trump gets in? You think that's what a lot of this is about?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the military industrial complex can be fed. Now, here's the beautiful thing. They won't go to nuclear war because nobody wins it. Military industrial complexes can't sell to anyone. Everyone's gone. Everyone's dead. But while there's a profit, if we can have a frozen or an ongoing conflict over the next 15, 20 years, everyone wins in the military industrial complex world. So it is this sort of roundabout. And the moment that Trump puts a stop to it, of course, for the military industrial complex, remember that's 27 billion a year, and they fund the Congress to around about something like 75 million pounds worth of funding to congressmen every single year.
I think the really good thing about what's happening now is everything appears so transparent. It's so absolutely obvious that Keir Starmer is not on our side, that he works for other interests outside of us. And I think that at least gives us an opportunity to do something about it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's no way I can see in a million years that Starmer's ever going to get in again. I think the people in
No.
Britain are very, very smart. I think they're very, very much waking up. I think certain things that happened with lockdowns woke a lot of people up. And now people are beginning to get awake. And of course, once you take, they want to bottle up the internet and they want to put people away for saying 30 words. But they're quite happy to let people who have done awful things and look at awful images roam around the country scot-free. And of course, that has to come from Starmer, who appoints the Attorney General. So he appoints the Attorney General. It then goes off to the Queen to be ratified. And of course, he then instructs the judges. So if these judges are letting these people off, the buck stops with Starmer, I'm afraid.
Well, let it stop with him. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Warren, and actually giving us much more of a balanced view than we hear out there. Of course, you know what to do, people. You need to starve mainstream and legacy media because they consistently lie to you. Thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate that very much. Everybody, this is Warren Thornton from warrenthornton.com. Take good care of yourself, Warren. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Sonia. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Lovely to see him. Absolutely lovely to see him. Yes, I see the thing about obviously the people that we have. Not only are they people who have, for the most part, first-hand experience. Warren used to be a sniper, as one example. He has military experience, and but so it is actually wonderful that I often get the opportunity to talk to people who know exactly what's happening on the ground. And as indeed does my next guest. And I'm not even going to hang around to bring him in because he's been with us before. But he's somebody who speaks with a great deal of experience on the topic he's about to speak about. It's Harry Miller of We Are Fair Cop. Good morning, Harry.
Yeah. Hi, Sonia. How are we doing?
Well, it's really good to have you with us, Harry. And, you know, what I was just saying about Warren absolutely applies to you because you are, of course, a former cop and you're taking on the police.
Yeah, taking on the police again. I mean, they made the absolutely ridiculous mistake of coming for me again. This was my local force, Lincolnshire. I mean, you know that lunatic copper that we had fired, Lindsay Watson. He was fired from Leicestershire Police a year ago after a campaign of stalking me and you that lasted 3 years. Well, after he got fired by Leicestershire Police for gross misconduct and placed on the barred list and having had his pension taken off him, Fair Cop put out a statement, and it said this. It said, "Statement re the dismissal of PC Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police." And then I wrote a little statement. PC Watson, ex-PC Watson, has telephoned Lincolnshire Police and said that statement purports to be from Leicestershire Police, that I was pretending to be the chief constable and that this has caused him alarm, harassment and distress. And so the police contact me under the Online Safety Act, section 1979, to tell me that I had been spreading maliciously and false information. And I read it out because the police officer under interview, he said, "You're claiming that you're Leicestershire Police. You've put this as a statement by Leicestershire Police." I said, "It doesn't. Read it. It says statement re the dismissal of PC Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police." I said, "Only a bleeding idiot could read this in any other way. And you've sought fit to threaten me with arrest and demand that I come to a voluntary interview with the threat of a voluntary arrest for this because you can't read English." And they said, "Well, it's not just that." He said, "You've also said that Lindsay Watson is a man." I said, "He is a man." He said, "Well, that's also spreading false information because he thinks he's not a man." And I said, "Well, I'm telling you now that we were stalked by a male, the male formerly known as Alex Horwood, who has spent the last few years masquerading as a woman, calling himself Lindsay Watson. You are now telling me that I am being investigated again under the Online Safety Act because I correctly sexed my stalker." That's what happened. So what I ended up doing, because I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of this. When I realized how little research they'd done and how wrong they were, I took the rather ingenious step of arresting the detective sergeant.
Right, that's what I want to get to. This is interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you actually carried out a citizen's arrest, right? Tell us what happened. What did you do?
Well, we went through all this. I thought, well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, see if he's got anything. When I realised it was all absolute nonsense. Not only that, but the tweet that I put out, the so-called statement, I put that out on October the 27th. The Online Safety Act didn't come into effect in 2023. The Online Safety Act didn't come into effect until the 31st of January 2024. So on every level, it was completely nuts. So
wait, they are trying to actively or retrospectively charge you for something that didn't actually exist. Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
That's exactly it. And we challenged them at the time and said, are you sure about the date? And they said, yes. Now, what he confused, the Act got its royal assent on the 26th of October 2023, but it didn't come into effect until the 31st of January 2024. Now, of course, I knew that, and my solicitors knew that, but there's an old saying, do not interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake.
Damn
and so we just let them carry on and carry on and carry on. And then I thought, right, okie dokie, this is a case of harassment. Now, citizen's arrest is covered by Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And a citizen may arrest any other person who they believe to be engaged in an indictable offence. That means an offence that's tried at Crown Court or either way rather than a magistrate's court. So simple harassment is not indictable. There is no power of arrest for a citizen for simple harassment. However, the 1997 Protection from Harassment Act, Section 4, states very clearly that harassment with a threat of violence is indictable. So that's what I used. Now, the harassment was quite obvious. You know, a police ringing you up, telling you they want to interview you, blah, 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 blah. There's the harassment bit. What about the violence bit? Well, when the police officer rang me, and he invited me to a voluntary interview, I asked him, I said, if I refuse to attend the voluntary interview, will you consider arresting me? And he said, yes, it is one of the options. Now, an arrest is an act of violence because it involves putting you in handcuffs, taking you to a place that you do not want to be. In other words, it's an abduction. It involves placing you in a cell and restricting your freedom. And it involves physically taking your DNA and your fingerprints with force if necessary. So at that point, I knew that I got Section 4, Protection from Harassment Act 1997. So I quoted this at the detective sergeant because he said, right, that's the end of the interview. I'm going to turn the tape off. And I said, don't you dare turn the tape off. You leave that tape running because I've got something to say to you. And that's when I arrested him. And he then uttered the magic words, well, you can't arrest me. So, you know, for all your listeners, all you need to do if you're ever arrested, is just say, you're not arresting me, and boom, that's it. They're going to have to let you go. I said, well, you are arrested. And he got up to leave the room, and I stood at the door and said, no, you're not leaving the room. I'm not going to lay a hand on you, but we're in a police station. I demand that you now take me and yourself to the custody sergeant for processing, which is precisely what you would have done to a member of the public had you arrested them. He said, I'm not doing that. I said, well, okie dokie then, I can't make you, but I'm not letting you go until you bring a police officer down here so I can hand you over to them for processing. Anyway, 4 police officers turned up. They immediately de-arrested the sergeant and told him to go and hide in the police station. And then they argued black and blue that threatening somebody with arrest is not a threat. And I said to them, I said, look, that's patent nonsense. I said, if I were to say to you, unless you comply with my demand to meet me at a certain time in a certain place, I'm going to smack you in the face. Does that not constitute a threat? And they said, you can't say that. I said, precisely. It's a threat. The threat of arrest. The threat of arrest is a threat of violence. And therefore, my arrest is lawful. Anyway, all 4 officers argued with me for a few minutes and then went running away.
Saw that video where they were all surrounding you, right? And they were kind of denying that you have any authority to do this, right?
Yeah. But I do. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Pace works. Pace is law. And I'm not stupid, Sonia. You know that. I'm an ex-police officer. You know that. What worries me is that I was a police officer for about 5 minutes 200 years ago. and I still know the law better than these muppets. That's what really worries me. And I said to them, I said, why is it one rule for members of the public and another rule for you? They said, well, if you've got a complaint, it's a procedural one. I said, no, it's not. It's a criminal complaint. And you've just let the criminal go. So there we are.
So the problem, obviously, is with a citizen's arrest is we don't have the force on our side. So what ultimately happens? You can't like actually arrest him, right? I mean, you can say
it was an arrest. It was an arrest in exactly the same way as if a police officer had arrested me or arrested you. It has exactly the same power in law. Now, what normally happens with an arrest is you take the arrested person to a custody sergeant who makes a quick assessment of the evidence and decides whether or not the arrest was lawful, proportionate, and necessary. If it was, he then puts him in the cell for questioning. If it wasn't, he lets the person go and says to the officer, you know, you're going to have to investigate this some other way because the arrest wasn't necessary. What they don't do is gather around the foyer, chat amongst themselves, and independently decide, without looking at any of the evidence or listening to any of the evidence, that the sergeant could have done nothing wrong, and simply say, we're not going to investigate him, we're not going to question him, we're not going to do anything, you're wrong, he's right, ta-ta. That is against the law. They have broken their own lawful code of practice.
I hear that, and certainly like in terms of common law, but what ultimately happens? Because whereas you were subject to investigation and an interview, are you still under investigation?
I've no idea. Because I don't think the interview quite went as that detective sergeant imagined. I imagine that he went away scratching his head, as did their colleagues, thinking, what the hell just happened? Because I don't think any citizen has ever arrested a detective sergeant in a police station before. I just don't think it's ever happened. Right, I don't think it's likely to happen.
But I think you take my point. But what can ultimately happen about it, though? Because even though we understand the law and this is absolutely permissible, what you did, what can ultimately happen? I mean, do you see what I'm saying? It's like I always feel the problem is that the law is working against us by the sheer volume of manpower they have on their side, Harry. So what can ultimately happen? Because I saw your tweet, you were struggling to sleep because you're so angry, you're so frustrated, and you're right to. And one of the reasons you know so much is you've actually challenged a lot of this madness, even going back to 2021 in the High Court. I was there. I've seen you challenge this crazy stuff, and you're totally up to speed with it. But ultimately, what can happen if we think that a rogue cop has broken the law? What can ultimately happen if they're not going to act on it?
Well, what I will do is I will go through it systematically. First of all, I will write to the chief constable and demand that the arrest be recognised as, well, not recognised as lawful, but at least be tested against my evidence. That's simple. You need to follow due process. If they go, not quite sure about that, then fine, they've done their job. Failing that, what we will consider is a private prosecution against the detective sergeant. The problem with the private prosecution is the Crown Prosecution Service can take it off you at any time, say they're going to do it themselves, and then drop it. So you are up against that. It's not easy. And also, a private prosecution can only be done in the magistrate's court. It cannot be done in the Crown Court. So you have that problem. The other problem with the other option is a malfeasance lawsuit, because they couldn't have got it more wrong. How can you investigate somebody for a crime when the thing that they allegedly did wasn't a crime at the time?
Yes, quite.
It's actually a breach of Article 7.
Now that is Kafkaesque, isn't it? It absolutely is, because what they've done is they found a target, you, and they are waiting to fit a crime to you.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's there's a whole bunch of things. We could go back to the High Court. I don't really want to do that, because having won once and then again against the College of Policing at the Court of Appeal, it was always my aim and my hope that having won, that we wave our saber at them and we write them a strongly worded letter backed up by a good KC. And they do the right thing and back down, but you just don't know, Sonia. I mean, I think my problem is that I credit these people with brains, and they don't seem to have brains. They seem to be operating like a high priest inquisition on nothing more than doctrines of faith. And that's very, very difficult to argue against. But so we're up against it, but I've done it before, and I'm not averse to doing it again.
Can you answer this for me? Mr. Fortune says, good morning. With all due respect to your guest, he is wrong about citizen's arrest. You will be committing a crime yourself. Not even a security guard can lawfully arrest you. What's the position there, Harry?
Well, it's completely wrong. PACE, section 24A, says that any person may arrest any other person if they reasonably suspect that they are engaged in an indictable offence. That's not up for debate. Type in PACE section 24A. So there.
So there. The thing is, Harry, I know that you are determined and I know that you will deal with this, but I don't ultimately know what they could be potentially charging you with, which is why I feel that you're being targeted rather than anything else. And I like the fact that you turn the tables on them, because this needs to happen more often. So where do you think it could, other than you having to take out private proceedings, where could it potentially go from here? And further, Harry, what message does this send out to the wider public?
Well, the whole purpose of this action was not to send a message to the wider public, but to send a message to the police that the police are not beyond the law, that if they come harassing us, I will harass them.
Right.
It's as simple as that. But my harassment will be reasonable, it will be lawful, and I will argue that it's been greatly provoked. And if necessary, I will use PACE section 24 again and again and again until one of it, sometime it's going to stick, because eventually they're going to get sick of me. No police officer, just like a member of the public, wants to be arrested. No. And I'm more than happy to go and arrest any other officer who is behaving like this against any other member of the public, and I will take my chance in court.
Oh, more power to your elbow. I think we need to stand up and be counted. I'm not sure, and we have to be careful on YouTube, so I can be very, very funny about this. I'm not sure what is the position in law in terms of what they may call misgendering or dead naming. Is there a position in law?
Misgendering and dead naming is not an offence. It's protected by, I believe, protected by the Forstatter ruling, and saying it is protected by my ruling. It's as simple as that. Now, if you target somebody and target them and misgender them over and over again, in the same way that if you target somebody and call them a smelly fish over and over again, then of course that may enter into the realms of harassment and malicious communication. But it's not the fact of misgendering somebody that it is the crime. It would be the fact of making their life hell by repeatedly going at them.
Got you. Absolutely. So, but ultimately, this is all based on the false idea that you were somehow fraudulently pretending to be Lincolnshire Police. Is that correct?
I mean, that's right. Yeah. I mean, how dumb have you got to be to think that a statement that says a statement read the dismissal of PC Watson from Leicestershire Police is me pretending to be the Chief Constable of Leicestershire? How utterly dumb have you got to be? It is off the scale. And the copper argued with me. He said, well, that's how I read it. I said, well, that's because you're utterly stupid and incompetent. You've taken the worst possible reading.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. The worst possible reading. Exactly that. That is what happened. They've targeted you. You've upset them for a period of years now. You were literally the front runner dealing with the non-crime hate crimes at We Are Fair Cop. And you are a problem to the state, Harry. You do realise this, yeah?
I do. And I've said it before, but I want them to see my face, and I want them to absolutely cack their pants in exactly the same way that if a member of the constabulary knocks on a person's door, regardless of whatever it is, the tendency is for the public to feel very dizzy and very sick and worry themselves stupid. I want police officers to feel exactly the same. When my name is mentioned, when they see my face, if I come into the door, I want them to have that exact same feeling of, oh my God, we've messed with the wrong guy. Here comes trouble. This is not going to end well for us. Because I'll tell you one thing, Sonia, Harry Miller knows his stuff.
Oh, he does. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This is Harry Miller of We Are Fair Cop, and he is not taking it lightly. And thank God for that, because we're living through such draconian times, Harry. I mean, you and I could barely have predicted this back in 2020 in many respects, and 2019. But everything that we kind of knew was on the table is happening right now, and we need to act against it because there's no more time to waste. So thank you for standing up and being counted, everybody. Harry Miller of We Are Fair Cop. Take good care of yourself, Harry. Have a lovely weekend. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. And we need that. We need people who are prepared to do that. I want that same impact on anybody who's corrupt or dark, that when they see me, they're like, oh, crikey, right? Especially you pedos out there, right? I want you to be scared and terrified that one day I may knock on your door. There you go. Just on that little note. Right, let's have a look at what else is happening, people. Let's have a look at what else is happening. I wanted to, ticked off, mate. I'm so ticked off about this, right? And that is the whole hypocrisy of the Captain Tom Moore Fund. His daughter's husband. And I know the thing is, you can tell sometimes kind of like the sexism in our world, because the big focus is on the daughter. But it was the daughter and the son-in-law spending it together. What am I talking about? I'm talking about an old soldier, right? An old soldier. Let's add this to the stage, as they say. There he is. You can see him. And what he did was, during COVID-19, he walked around and around and around his daughter's huge house, significant house, to raise money for NHS charities. That's not directly the NHS, but to me, it is a distinction without a difference, because these are charities that have been selected by the NHS. And if the NHS wasn't so keen on, being privatized, a lot of those charities would fall under the auspices of the NHS. But nonetheless, he was raising it for NHS charities. Anyway, about a year ago, I made a video which was about the media hype of Captain Tom and how essentially a nation was fleeced. And yesterday we heard that was correct. Absolutely correct. So what we've heard is that the Charity Commission have concluded that Hannah and Colin Ingram Moore benefited significantly through their association with the charity and were guilty of repeated misconduct, right? Yesterday, they were branded greedy, wicked. They decided to pocket a £1.5 million advance from a book deal that was written by Captain Tom. They gave none of it to the charity that was established in his name. It's fairly damning. The report from the Charity Commission is fairly damning, and as it should be, really. But what's troubling is that the Commission confirmed it had not referred the contents of its report to the police or to the Crown Prosecution Service. They said that they had not found evidence of criminal activity. Bedfordshire Police, which is the local police to Hannah and her husband, they also confirmed that they were not investigating the issue. However, at least one member of the Lords, Lord Folkes of Cumnock, he sat on the Lords Select Committee on Charities to scrutinise the Commission's activities. And he said it is entirely right that there should be an investigation, because it appears that money that was given in good faith may have been misappropriated. The top picture, of course, is of greedy Hannah and her husband next to her. And that was at Wimbledon. They were given VIP treatment. That's actually the Royal Box. And that is her standing and being applauded for her 100-year-old dad raising money for charity. And of course, we've seen it all now. They've completely, the Ingram Moores completely misled the British public, completely. And we're not talking a small amount of money. We're talking in excess of £30 million that was raised, at least, that went to NHS charities, right? Then they misled people about a book advance, as I say, right? An advance of almost 1.5 million for a 3-book deal was paid to Club Nook, which is the Ingram Moores' own company. Their directors, none went to the charity. Then there was a fee of £18,000, right? Mrs. Ingram Moore made an appearance at a Virgin Media Local Legends Award ceremony. She was paid £18,000. She claimed it was undertaken in a personal capacity. And the commission, the charity commission, said there was no evidence to support this. And the money should have gone to the foundation, the charity, which received a big whoop, a separate £2,000 fee. So she pocketed 18 grand and 2,000 went to Virgin. Then there was all the branding that they did for Captain Tom Moore. There was like gin as one example. They also put in a planning application where they used the foundation's name for a luxury spa facility in the grounds of the family's 2.5 million home in Bedfordshire. That facility has now been torn down, right? They were the Ingram Moores invited to rectify matters. Not everybody gets a chance to rectify matters when there are serious financial issues going on here, but they were invited to rectify the matters, certainly over the book deals. That's a whopping 1.5 million by making a donation to the charity in line with the original intentions, because even Tom Moore said that what the money was supposed to be for. They declined to do so. So they chose not to make a contribution to the foundation from the 1.5 million that they should not have taken personally. They chose not to rectify it. The 30-page report from the Charity Commission is absolutely damning. Of course, Mrs. Ingram Moore, she's already banned from being a trustee. It's an actual mess. It is a serious, hardcore mess. And, also remember all the things that happened around it, right? When we were in lockdown, talking about the UK now at Christmas, what did they do? Do you remember? Tom Moore and his family buggered off to Barbados for a Christmas holiday, right? Because they were treated like heroes, all of them, during which time he was pictured with Cliff Richard and Russ Abbott in Barbados. And it was really an up yours to the rest of us, right? It was really an up yours. I load that. I'm going to put a link to the original long video that I did. It's still absolutely relevant. And it's horrible. This is the reason that people don't trust charity. These are the reasons that people don't. How did they get so much TV coverage in the first place? Was it staged? Well, so what happened, obviously, is people were looking for a hero, right? And the media like to create heroes. And what better for a hero in the media's eyes often, because don't forget they're war whores, is a former veteran, or a veteran rather. What better? He was a military man. So, and 100 years old. Yes, Mary, with Cliff Richard. That's exactly what he was doing. What's that? I'm just as interested in where the 30 odd million was spent in the NHS. It wasn't. That was the thing, Marcuson. It was spent in NHS charities together, right? Like I say, it's a distinction without a difference. So that was for things like mental health charities and stuff like that. Awful stuff. It was, Jackie, emotional blackmail. Exactly that. And never appeal to reason or common sense when dealing with police. Oh, you'll only incriminate yourself. That's about the last story, obviously. Has anyone mentioned their spa they built and had to tear it down? I just mentioned it, Chris. Yeah, because they actually used the foundation's name to get planning, to seek planning permission for that spa. Anyway, it turned out that spa was essentially illegal, and they've had to tear it down. One absolute waste of money. Frank says the universe is like a big bowl of soup. Cliff was probably on a summer holiday, says Cavan. I feel a theme here. Aurora is talking about drunken activities and sex parties at Oxfam. Somebody commented to me this week what was happening with Oxfam, so I had to do an update on that. Yeah, we can't trust these people, obviously, but there has to be a police investigation for this one. There has to be, right? And honestly, I have to say, I'm not entirely convinced that Captain Tom wasn't aware of who his daughter was or his son-in-law, that they were greedy, grasping individuals. Greedy, so greedy. Yes, Shug, it was only a waste to those who gave. The rats that took the money either way got paid. Yes, PTC, I certainly didn't. I had a problem from the get-go. I was like, why is this old soldier raising money for NHS charities? Like, why do we pay tax? And this is happening. And so it was always very dodgy. Yes, Stephen, charities are absolutely corrupted. And this is the problem. This is exactly the problem and why we all have a problem with it. Right. This week, let me move on because I'm spitting and annoyed with these awful people. This week was the funeral of former One Direction singer Liam Payne. Died in suspicious circumstances in Argentina, Buenos Aires in October this year. 3 men have been arrested and charged. There are conflicting accounts of what happened and a plethora of conspiracy theories online. And as I say, Liam's funeral took place this week at St Mary's Church in Amersham in Buckinghamshire. It rained and there was a guest list of music and entertainment names. There was all of One Direction there, and I'm not actually sure if they're even on good terms with each other, but they all showed up to show their respects. Harry Styles was first to arrive. He entered the church alongside actor James Corden. And there was an assortment of people, including Liam's girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, who arrived with Liz Hurley's son, Damien Hurley. And I think for many people, one of the most kind of like interesting interactions that we witnessed was Simon Cowell, who was obviously X Factor and who had chosen Liam to be part of One Direction, essentially the lead singer to start with. And he was there, and it appeared quite clear. I watched the extended version of the clip, and Simon Cowell and Liam's mum and dad were all hugging each other. And so even though there's been a lot of gossip online that Simon Cowell has some involvement with Liam's death, which I've always said I don't believe for a second. I don't believe this is a music industry thing. But it was so interesting to see the relationship between Simon Cowell and the Paynes, and it seemed really genuine. Let me be clear here. Of course, Simon Cowell is a piece of filth. There's many things that he supports that I absolutely detest, including the sexualization of children via his so-called family TV shows, and including funding the IDF. He once gave $100,000 to the Israel defense, to the army. And so there's lots of things that Simon Cowell stands for, and he gave 50k to Jonathan King when Jonathan King was waiting trial. There's lots of things that Simon Cowell stands for that I absolutely deplore, but I don't actually believe that he is involved with this. And it would appear on the surface that neither do the Paynes. And of course, it's heartbreaking, isn't it, to see big floral wreaths spelling daddy and son. Those things bring it home to us that this was not just a young man who had it all so early on, apparently, but a real person who has a child and is a son and has a family who loved him. And I mean, it's just horrible. I think we just have to wait. I mean, nobody's going to wait and see, because that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where everybody has lots and lots of theories. And I suppose for the most part, that's absolutely fine. And they're allowed to, right? Because that's what freedom of speech should be about. But obviously, you have to be careful in this country when there are live investigations. But this is not a police investigation in the UK anyway. So we will see. It doesn't look like Simon Cowell. That's because he's had so much done to his face, Marcuson. A huge volume of stuff done to that face. Just a distraction, says Uhtred. You always have to pay a price for such fame, says Halo. Well, and that is the problem, is that many people, they think that fame is the most wonderful thing. Obviously, young people are sold the idea of fame online and how brilliant it is. And obviously, having, as many people know, I was a former music journalist and I traveled with some incredibly famous people, Snoop Dogg and Diddy and all manner of people. And I saw close up how actually horrible the music industry is, how it abuses people. It kind of spits them out when it's done with them, or kills them off when they're no longer selling records because, well, you know, you can make a lot of money in publishing. Anyway, very sad. And his face is so unreal, says Randy. Simon, what happened to E17 was absolutely horrendous. To be fair, they were managed by Tom Watson. And what Brian Harvey has to say about Tom Watson is absolutely spot on and correct, actually. Yeah, Cavan, people do tend to think that money has the answers for everything. But that's, you see, the thing is, the one thing I know about money is the only thing that money can solve is money problems. That's the deal. That's the deal. Let's move on to an altogether more light-hearted and spiritually uplifting topic. I think now is the moment to do that because we're living in such a dark world, aren't we? Here's Sian Hill. Hello, Sian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Well, I'm good. We're looking for some spiritual uplifting. But first of all, let me give some background to who you are. You're, let me see. This is very interesting description of you. You are NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, alchemy teacher. That's a very interesting title or series of titles going on. What does that mean?
So in essence, it's all about discovering the unconscious programs that we have. And by programs, I mean the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors that we carry out. And if they're not getting us the outcomes that we want, then using the tools that I teach to change them so that we can create different results.
And a lot of us are stuck in a loop, aren't we? We're just kind of repeating over and over our bad habits, and we don't understand why we're not getting what we want in our lives, and that's really what you're here to talk about. So you have a new book. It's called Activate Your RAS, the art and science of creating your reality from the inside out. Is this the law of attraction?
Yes. So to give you a bit of background, I started learning about the law of attraction back in, I think it was around 2010, when my mum gave me the book, The Secret. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought, this really sounds true. Yet, how does it work? I felt like I was going insane doing the processes that I'd read about, but they weren't necessarily shifting things in the way that I thought they should. So I went down the rabbit hole of, right, if our thoughts create our reality, how do I change my thoughts?
Yes.
And that's when I stumbled across NLP, timeline therapy, and all the other processes. So yeah, it's the sciencey bit behind the law of attraction parts that I'd read.
A lot of people think that it's all woo-woo, don't they? The law of attraction. But I know personally, I consider myself somebody who masterly manifests. I'm constantly manifesting, and I subscribe to a lot of these ideas. But a lot of people think it's all woo-woo. But as you say, there is a science to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I look at it is that it's a universal law, just like the law of gravity. So although we can't see gravity, we know that what goes up must come down. So we tend to walk out the front door instead of the upstairs window, and we accept it as being true. So if you accept the law of attraction as being true, we're manifesting all the time. We're always creating our reality. The question is, are we doing it on purpose or not?
Right, exactly. Purposeful. We need to be purposeful. So you start off your book talking about a red car that you dreamt about owning, and then suddenly it was everywhere. What message did you take from that, Sian?
Yeah, so this is where the reticular activating system comes in. So the reticular activating system is a bundle of nerves that sits at the top of the spinal column, and it's wired to our senses. So every second of the day, our senses are being bombarded with millions of bits of information, everything we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, and it's too much to consciously process. So the reticular activating system acts like a radar that scans through all of that information. And then when something's important to us, it activates and brings it into our conscious awareness. This is why when you decide something's important, which you do through your focus, when you focus on something, so in my case, it was the red car. I decided I wanted one, it was important, and then suddenly it was everywhere. And at the time I thought, am I going crazy? Like with these cars there all the time anyway, but it is your brain bringing into your awareness the things that you have said that are important. So this is where working with the reticular activating system, if you start to train it to focus on the things that you want, it will show you the path to achieving them.
And that is your RAS. And talk to me about the gatekeeper of your conscious mind. Because when I got to that, I was like, that is an obstacle right there, that gatekeeper, isn't it?
Yeah, so that is, again, the reticular activating system, in that if you think everything that's happening is being processed unconsciously, we're just not aware of it consciously. So for example, to bring this to life, the sounds in the distance at the moment, or the temperature of your breath as you breathe in and out, it's all there, it's all being processed at the unconscious level, yet until you think about it, you're not aware of it. So to work with the gatekeeper is to train it to focus on what you want. Now, as people, we're taught to focus on what we don't want, and it's easy to do so. So, you know, to give you a real life example, if somebody said, I want to lose weight, the go-to is I'm going to stop eating chocolate. I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. So the focus is then on those things because the brain doesn't process negative. So if I say to you, don't think of chocolate, chocolate has to come to mind for you to not think about it. Yeah. So our brain is then focused on chocolate and suddenly it's everywhere. And it's like, this is the thing that I wanted to avoid. So if you can start to focus on what you want, that's the things that you'll then be aware of.
And this actually makes sense, just not just on a gut level, but on a practical level, because obviously if you haven't got any money and you're constantly focusing on lack, all you're going to get is more lack. Whereas if you actually focus on abundance, I focus a lot on abundance. I've had some very impoverished times, and even through poverty, I focused on abundance, right?
Yeah.
And that really is the key, isn't it? Because it is about, I mean, you actually sum it up. You talk about creation and manifestation. Expand on that for us.
Yeah, everything is created twice, essentially. It's first created in the mind and then created in physical reality, because the physical reality, the physical plane, knock on wood, world that we live in is a manifestation of our inside world. So to create something, if you can think it, if you can create it in your mind, you can create it outside of you. There's the universal law of correspondence, which is another one that's really great as feedback, which is that as within, so without.
Yes.
So whatever's happening inside of us will be reflected back outside of us. And we can work with this two ways. So if the world that we're seeing outside of us isn't what we want, we can change the inner world, which is a process of, uncovering what is it that I believe, what must I believe for this to be my physical reality. And then also, because it works both ways, you can also start to shift things outside of you, which is taking action, doing the physical stuff, which will then start to reflect back inwards as well. So you've got a two-way street to work with until eventually energy becomes matter and turns into a physical manifestation.
Talk to me about the 4 planes of existence, right? Spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical.
Yeah, so to start with the spiritual is where everything is one, everything is connected, which is where we kind of go into the woo side of things. It's the all. And we all have access to the spiritual plane, which is where if we can dream something, we must be able to conceive it in this reality, because everything is connected. The mental plane is where our thoughts are. It's our unconscious mind. So we think of something. The emotional plane is where the energy comes from. So it's the energy in motion, which gives us the physical energy to create the things that we want in the physical realm, which is the 4th plane. So the 4th plane is the tangible experience that we have. Now, when it comes to manifestation, people tend to get lost in either one of the planes. So it may be that somebody's working really hard in the physical plane, in that they're taking a lot of action,
right?
Hustle, brute force, yet they haven't dealt with the mental and the emotional plane, which may be a belief that it's not possible, or they'll never achieve what they want, or they're not good enough, or maybe there's a lot of fear and doubt going on. So it's looking at all of the planes holistically to make sure that they're all in alignment to create what it is that you desire. Otherwise, if there's even one that's out of whack, that's going to make the journey not impossible, but it can be a lot harder.
Balance. I subscribe to the idea that most everything in moderation is okay. I think balance is absolutely vital in our life. And I make sure that I have, my spiritual taken care of, my physical, all of those things are really important to me. But it's been a long journey, because we are taught to separate ourselves out from these aspects of ourselves from a very young age, aren't we? Like, obviously very conventional mainstream schooling. There is absolutely no connection with our spiritual self beyond singing, in the morning. Okay. And we're cut off very early. I was very fortunate. I come from a spiritual family. I take it you do as well with your mum, Kim. Kat, shout out to Kim. She's a viewer, and she introduced Sian to our show. But I take it that you have a background in spirituality as well, so that you are able to understand these things more easily than a lot of people.
Yeah, it wasn't always the way. I think mum always had that interest in it. It was more in my mid-20s. I was on a path that wasn't serving me at all. I had a lot of lack of self-worth, and I'd gotten myself into a toxic relationship.
Were you a bit wild?
Yes. Yeah, I went off the rails for a while. My mum, I made her work hard, and my dad, God bless him. And come my mid-20s, I wasn't where I thought I would or should be. I was in debt. My health was suffering. I had no career prospects. I had no confidence. And that was when mum gave me the book, The Secret. And she I'm so thankful that I have the family that I do. And she said, you can do so much more. You're so much better. The kind of pushing it onto me. in a loving way, that there was more for me out there. And I think if it hadn't have been for her, I probably wouldn't have ended up down this path.
Do you believe in the kind of duality of God and a devil? Do you believe in that?
I do believe in duality. I think duality is part of the human experience. For everything that exists, again, it's a universal law, the law of duality, the law of polarity. For everything that exists, its equal opposite must exist as well.
Right.
So for light, there's dark, good, there's bad, hot, there's cold. Where I think it gets interesting is that if you think of it almost like a pole, they're the same thing, but the opposite ends. So temperature, for example, hot and cold, they're both different expressions of the thing called temperature. And where the more open you can be to each end of the spectrum, or experiencing each end of the spectrum, the more access you have to its equal opposite. So to make this real, if somebody is really averse to poverty and they will do anything to avoid poverty, they essentially cut off their experience of wealth as well. So if you imagine poverty is one end, wealth is the other, they narrow down the spectrum of what they're available for, so they don't have access to either end. Now, I think it's an interesting world. That doesn't mean that you focus on or desire to have poverty, but it's the being okay with whatever turns up, I'll be able to handle it. And the more that you know that you can handle it inside of you, the more access you have to the abundance.
This is so true. I know this is true. Absolutely. When I felt that my back was against the wall and suddenly I remembered who I am and what I'm capable of, all manner of things kick into place. And I literally feel that I could like go to war on my own. Do you know what I mean? Against an army. And I think that's something way beyond me, much bigger than me. I will pretty much take on anybody when I know I'm in the right. Right. And I think because something just inside of me, I hate injustice, and all of those things are part of me and who I came with. So let's just talk about some of these laws, because I think they're really interesting and I think they're important as well. So you've broken it down. There's a lot of laws, actually. Law of mentalism. What is the law of correspondence?
So the law of correspondence, that's the one that I touched on earlier, which is as within, so without.
Right.
So,
okay. Got you.
The inner world reflects the outer world and back again. So it's working with both of them. I think one of the, I can see that Amy has commented about balancing, and the great point there. One of the ones that I really love to work with is the law of rhythm, which is something that I had to learn a lot myself along the way, which is, if you think of the universe almost like in waves, we go through cycles as people. So what goes up must come down. Now, you see this really evident with people that are hugely successful. So if you think of athletes, performers, when they're on the stage, if you imagine it like a pendulum swing, the pendulum swings so high in the way of they feel great. They've got thousands of people chanting their name, doing whatever they're doing, that they're on such a high. The pendulum has to swing back in equal opposition in the opposite direction. So therefore, they'll experience the lows that follow. So the higher the high, the lower the low. And this is where, there'll be stories of people that will have drug problems or alcohol problems after they've had such extreme highs. So knowing this is knowing that whenever you're on a high, there will be an equal low that follows. So how can you prepare yourself for that? How can you know that this too shall pass? It's all part of the process. So let's get some strategies in place to keep myself on track whilst I'm going through it. And then also when experiencing the high, keep yourself grounded in it, so it doesn't end up going off the scale, knowing this too shall pass. So whether you're at a high or a low, it's how do I balance myself throughout the process, knowing that's all that it is. It doesn't mean anything, because I think as people, we like to apply meaning to things and create stories.
All the time. And if we don't have an answer to something, we seek to fill that gap ourselves. And oftentimes it's wrong, right? But sometimes a lot of this is just the process of living, right? Because the things that concerned me at 20, they can't even touch me now. Right. And I love that. I love being able to have that overview and see that life is a series of peaks and troughs, that you're absolutely right. That going up also will mean that you will also come down. And there's nothing wrong with that, to actually see it in the round and see the big picture of it. But there's loads of laws here that I love. Law of vibration as one example. I mean, that's going on all the time, isn't it? I could tell how somebody feels before they even open their mouth, just based purely on what kind of vibration I'm getting from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Law of vibration is the primary law. It's the law of attraction that is the secondary law, which is what more people are familiar with. And it is everything is energy, everything is vibrating. It's just we don't have the magnifying glass big enough to be able to see it. So even, you know, the computer that we're speaking on at the moment, it's all vibrating. And we are as people, and the better we feel, the higher the vibration, the higher our energy, and the quicker we have the ability to attract high vibrating external experiences as well. So it's really becoming in tune with ourselves and checking in with how we feel. Does it feel good, not so good? And then uncovering what might that be an indication of. Is there a belief that's maybe dulling my vibration? Because at our core essence, we're all perfect. Everything is as it should be. It's usually the layers that we've placed upon ourselves through
Exactly. All that the world has placed on us as well. Aurora says, beware of the ego. Now, the ego is, you absolutely need an ego. I know my ego is really good and it's really, really strong, but you have to be careful with it, right? You have to use it well.
Yeah, and I think the key to it is awareness, is knowing, is this me? Is this my ego kicking in? And what's the driving force behind it? Even when it comes to, you know, the deciding what it is that you want to create, what you want to manifest, is it really what you want, or is it just based on what you think might look good to the outside world?
Or what somebody else has put on you, like parents, when they desire something for their children. Sometimes you have to do a lot of stripping back, don't you? But I think that also, that's the really good thing about your book, is it enables people to strip themselves back, right? You kind of guide people through this process almost of rebirth, actually. I don't mean to over egg the pudding in any way there, but you take my point, right?
Yeah, no, you carry on egging on. Yeah, it is that the book, I wrote it during lockdown, which was a real testing experience for me, in that I just started my new business. So I fell in that bracket of people that weren't supported. And I thought, right, this is really a time for me to practice what I preach and use the tools that I've been telling other people work wonders, and they really do. So I put them into practice and doubled down on them. And then I thought, I need to write this book for people who don't necessarily have those tools, or who are stepping into the world of manifestation and getting really lost in it. So I wanted to make the book something that gave the information in the background with a bit of the science, a bit of the woo. I'm by no means an expert on the science, but enough understanding that you get it, the conscious mind is satisfied. And then at the end of each chapter, there's an exercise to implement what you learn, because I think information is wonderful, but if you do nothing with it, then if anything, it can reinforce any of those limiting beliefs. It's like, I've read all these books and I still don't know what to do.
That is part of the problem. Sometimes it feels like for some people that anything to do with spirituality is a bit like chocolate. It kind of just melts on the tongue in no time, right? But actually what you do is as you say, you do a series of practical things throughout it. You talk about activation points, how we can encourage this more. So let's talk about that as well. And also just tell me this, why is willpower not enough?
Oh, yes. So let's talk about willpower then. So we have the conscious and the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is the only one that we have up until about the age of 7. So it's only when we're around 7, the conscious mind kicks in. Now, our conscious mind is the stuff that we're aware of. It's the rational, the logical, the reasoning, critical thinking mind. So until the age of 7, we're like a little sponge absorbing the world around us, and we're being programmed to think, feel, and act a certain way. So I think of the unconscious mind a bit like a submarine under the water, and it's responsible for about 95% of the power of the mind. So by the age of 7, it's kind of heading in a particular direction, and it does most of it on autopilot, which is really useful in that, a lot of the programs that really support us. So we can walk, we can talk, we can tie our shoelaces, we can do a lot without thinking. And there are also the beliefs and the habits and the behaviors that don't necessarily serve us. Then we have the conscious mind, which I liken to a rowing boat sat on top of the water. So this is the stuff we're aware of. It's the view of life. Now, when we decide that we want to make changes, we get out the metaphorical oars and we attempt to turn the rowing boat and go in a different direction. But what we don't realize, we don't know, we don't take into account is that the rowing boat and the submarine, they're tied together. They've got an imaginary rope between them, and the submarine didn't get the memo. So unconsciously, we're continuing to think, feel, and act the way that we already did, the way that we do. And then we're telling ourselves to think, feel, and act differently. So we're using 5% of the power of the mind to battle with the other 95%.
Wow.
And this is why willpower doesn't work, because you're fighting a losing battle. So the book is really helping you to understand what is it that's going on in the submarine, in the unconscious mind, and how can you begin to shift it and turn it around so that when you've got both minds on the same page, the conscious stuff becomes effortless. You still do the work, there's still action to take, it still feels uncomfortable, yet you know you can do it.
Talk to us about the actions necessary at the start of the process, like for becoming aware. You talk about at the end of each day making notes, the importance of that. I've done stuff like that for years because I do see the importance of that. A lot of the stuff that you've written really resonates with me because of the background I come from. My mum was a medium, so I was raised on stuff that lots of people weren't. So it really resonated with me. But some people listening to this will be very keen to know how they can activate these things, how they can encourage it more. So talk to us about the process of becoming aware.
Yeah, it was Carl Jung, famous psychiatrist, who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. So awareness is key to anything, because until you know something exists, how can you change it? So the key to awareness is ideally becoming aware in the moment. What are the things that trigger me? When you go to take action towards the goal that you have, what is it that stops you in that moment? What's the thought that you have? What's the emotion that comes up? What is the behavior that gets in the way? So you start to become aware of the patterns that you're carrying out that are almost acting like a block, like a barrier, metaphorically, to you taking the next step. Then once you've got that information, there are a whole host of tools that you can use to begin to shift it, whether it's, I use NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, breath work, meditation. There's lots of ways that you can begin to reprogram it, and you've got to know what it is that you're reprogramming. Ultimately, where am I now versus where do I want to be, and what's the gap between the two? This is the thought I'm currently having, the belief that I hold, and this is the belief that I desire, then that will get me to where I want to be. How do I begin to bridge that gap? And the first thing is knowing, what is this thought? And there's some questions throughout the book that will prompt you to turn inwards and really reflect on what must be present. A really simple question that I like to ask myself, whatever's happening in my world, is just, how did I create this? As in, what must I believe? What must be true in my internal world for this to be my external experience? And that can be a bit uncomfortable, because that's really about taking full responsibility for our experience. Like anybody, I like to take full responsibility and credit for the good stuff, and then the not so good stuff. It's like, that's where the magic really lies.
It is where the magic lies, because I wrote a manuscript, which I've never done anything with it, and it was about scaling the shadow side of ourselves. But it is through, I often talk at the end of each show about kind of psychology of human beings and spirituality of human beings, because I think it's really important to keep just bringing it back to yourself. You have to keep bringing it back to yourself. There's some questions here. Let me pose them to you. This one's a good one. Reba, what about those who have no care for others, yet everything seemingly lands in their lap? Is it because they are not allowing outside interference? What about that? Rewarding the wickedness?
Yeah, it's a great question, because if you think about it from an inside out job, somebody could be evil, for lack of a better word, yet they may have the belief that they are absolutely deserving of everything that they want. So the belief that they hold about themselves, potentially, who knows what the driving force behind it is, yet if they believe they're entitled, they're worthy, they deserve everything they desire, then that's how they'll show up in the world, and that's the reflection they'll get back. So even, I think it's a great question, because when it comes to manifestation and creation, good or evil doesn't necessarily exist. It's all about our belief system.
Interesting. So, but because that gets taken care of by another department, right? How we behave in this world. This is a whole different thing. I get you. You. So you could literally, but that makes sense why some of the most deplorable people appear to have it all, right? Is because they are manifesting their physical existence. That's what they are doing. But their behavior, as I say, will be taken care of by another department, another spiritual department. That's a whole other story, right?
I think that's where kind of karma can come in, and
yes,
also the energy that's driving it. So if it is coming from a negative energy, that karma will play out potentially in this lifetime, in that negative emotions, they have a negative impact on the body. So this is where
that's right. That's absolutely right. That is where all the other laws start to kick in. Katie says, is indecision a battle between the conscious and unconscious mind?
Yeah, absolutely can be. So when you consciously decide this is what I want, the unconscious mind maybe is experiencing self-doubt, a belief that it's not possible. That can leave people in limbo. It almost creates an internal conflict where I'm saying I want it, but then I feel differently, or I don't think I should go for it. So yes, that can be a good indication.
This is a good one. Humphrey, strange how members of your own family don't have the awareness. That is interesting, because it is proof, if anything was needed, really, that we are absolutely individuals for me. But how do you respond to that?
Coming from the family that I do, we're very open about these kind of conversations, and we often pull each other up on our blind spots. So I think this is where it all comes back to self, in that if anybody outside of you triggers a response within you, it's an opportunity to turn it inwards. Even if it's a member of your own family maybe not understanding you, I turn that external experience inwards and go, where am I not understanding myself, or maybe not understanding other people? And that's the version of that person that I'm getting back. So I'm not sure if that answers that or not.
Well, Danny says, I like this girl. She is on the right page. Good job. We aren't offended by that. We are fully grown women around here, but she is on the right page. You're absolutely right, Danny. I have to agree with you. So here's the thing, is that you very kindly will be giving away a signed copy of your book to one of our wonderful viewers. Do you have it with you? Do you want to flash a book so we can all see it? There it is. Look at that. Wonderful. And so what we will do is, because often what happens is, because obviously we have the live show and then we have playback as well. So you have up until 6 p.m. tomorrow night to write to me at my email address. I will pick out one random person, right? Write to me at soniapoulton@sky.com. I'm sure my lovely mods would very kindly put my address also in the live chat. And that one random person will receive a signed copy of Sian's wonderful book. So Sian, ultimately we just have to get out of our own way half the time, don't we? We are literally our own worst enemies, aren't we?
Yeah, and an approach that I've had recently that I think is really powerful is to maybe pull out a photo of yourself when you were 5 years old, keep it on your desk, and anytime you're mean to yourself, giving yourself a hard time, look at that picture of yourself when you were 5 and think, this is who I'm beating up right now, because it's often the programs that were created during that period that are just operating now. They're just not supporting us or serving us anymore. So it's kind of having compassion.
Paula's beat us all to it. She's already just ordered the book. It was enough listening to you talking. I mean, that's...
can I give your viewers a sneaky little offer? I haven't mentioned this to you.
Yes, absolutely. Go for it. We like sneaky little offers.
So if anybody does order the book, if you head to my website and send me a copy of your receipt, I'll also give you free access to a forgiveness meditation, which helps to cut energetic cords. So it will start that process of beginning to rewire the unconscious mind in support of what it is that you want.
Love that. I will put those details in the description. Sian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us today. Thank you to your mum for suggesting you. Absolutely brilliant. And just leave us, what note do you instinctively, right in this moment, feel that you want to convey to us?
Oh, I would say this is going to sound like a cliche. Yeah, it's something that really is important. And I want people to embody it rather than just get it intellectually. And that is to ask yourself, how can you fall in love with the journey? Because it really is never going to end. And when you get to the destination, it's who you've become in the process. So it's never the pinnacle and the excitement you think it will be. So it's how can this be fun every single day? Because that is life. that is living.
It is. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much for being here. I feel your vibration completely through the screen. It doesn't even matter that we have this between us. None of that is relevant once you're in tune, right? That's the great thing about vibrations. Thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate everybody. It is the lovely Sian Hill. Take good
Thank
care of
you for
yourself,
having
Sian.
me.
Wonderful. Have a wonderful weekend, sweetheart. How lovely is she? Absolutely lovely. Yes, that's right. So listen, wonderful, gorgeous people. Woo, says Milford. Thought warning to be careful of the new ages. I know people are worried. Going to listen to this again without chat distraction, says Mel's. Lovely person, thanks. Breath of fresh air. She wasn't she? She lovely, absolutely lovely, lovely person. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I know that it's not for everybody, but you know, we like variety around here. Yes, we do. And that's one of the reasons why I make sure to always put the times in the description so that you can skip things if they don't appeal to you. But I thought she was absolutely lovely. And judging by these comments, the vast majority of you all did too, which is absolutely great. Yeah, Jack, she was great, wasn't she? Please come back again. Absolutely. Oh, Carly. Carly has just shifted us all. Look what Carly has just brought to the table. My dazzle and Matt is giving evidence again now. Yes, he is indeed. He was told to return at 10 a.m. this morning. Yes. Positive, Frank. Good vibes. How should people title the mail for the book? Oh, competition. Just competition. Book competition. Yep, book competition. And literally the first one that is picked after 6 p.m. on Saturday night gets that book. Good vibes, David. Good vibes indeed. But Carly has just reminded us of a hated individual, but good vibes nonetheless. Good vibes. Randy's parrot is eating walnuts not. What does that mean, Randy? Yes, you certainly can, free steamer. You can contact me at Sonia Poulton at sky.com, right? Aurora says, thanks, Sian. And so say all of us. Just buy one, says LB. Book competition. Right. Let me see. Let's move on and see what else I'm going to bring you. It's happening, babies. The social media crackdown. And you know what they're doing? They're using children and misinfo to do it. And as I said before, B had tweeted me. B's in the comments. She tweeted me about what they were doing in Australia, how they want a digital age, right? Essentially a digital age of consent in order to be able to go on social media. Now, I'm all for that. I'm all for that because I am deeply concerned about the long-term issues of young people who are just developing using social media and all the stuff that comes with that. Anyway, Anthony Albanese, obviously Australia, said, today we're introducing our bill to make 16 years the minimum age for social media. So I was all like, whoop, whoop. But then it comes with a caveat. You ready for what the caveat is? This bill will require identity or age verification for all Australians to use social media, including adults. The government confirmed this is the only way to enforce it. Well, that was actually a community note that was added to it, because obviously Anthony Albanese is not going to be saying that. But this, of course, is digital ID by the back door. They've been using children all the time, just as they have with the UK's Online Harms Act. So this is nothing new. We knew they were going to do this. But we can have a decent digital age of consent without adults having to forfeit anonymity. If people want to be anonymous on social media, provided that they are not using it for nefarious reasons or to harm others, then they should have a right to do that. Okay? And because the thing is, to my knowledge, no one has asked for identity or age verification up to this point, and it's worked. Because even poor parents, and I don't mean it like financially impoverished, I mean poor parenting, even poor parenting who have allowed their children to be on social media before the age of 13, it gets called out by the people watching it. So it's not easy to be underage and using social media because it's visible to us, unless you are obviously just kind of doom scrolling, which is what a lot of them will be doing. But what is the solution, people? Tell me what the solution is, because I do believe we actually do need a decent digital age of consent. We don't know what it's doing with young people's minds. So does anybody in the comments have a solution how we're going to do this? Anybody? Maybe stupid prefers to steer clear. Condemned, I have no idea what you're talking about. No idea at all. I get on average 100 emails a week. It takes me a little while to work through them. But Condemned, if you are the person who sent me stuff and you said for me to kind of like download a link, I won't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. There are legal reasons why I can't, because I could well be downloading something illegal. So if you've done that, if you're that person, that's why I won't have done it. But if you're not, contact me again. Horse has bolted, Sonia. Sorry. I know it's not difficult to enforce. Everyone is banned until they provide photo ID with their date of birth on it. I mean, honestly, actually, James, I'm not sure why it should necessarily be such an issue, because they have everything on us already anyway, don't they? Really, with us using social media and the internet. Jacqueline says, I think Jacqueline has to be heard here. Leave it up to the parents. Stop taking our rights away. And I think this is an important point as well. But this is also just use age restrictions on devices, right? No child under 16 should have a smartphone. I've seen children of 9 and younger with smartphones. SAS one. Yes, I have. Condemned. Well, in that case, let me have a look for it. But honestly, a lot of it is just to do with the sheer volume of emails I receive. So I do try and respond to them personally, although I have I did a little while ago, bring in somebody to help me wade through the emails. But let me have a look. Let me check it out, right? What else? Any more suggestions? There's Rock Lover says there's lots of software to stop children viewing porn. Yeah, this will, right. Shalini said it's up to mum and dad. Sonia, this will affect us all, but for the wrong reasons. The problem is, I hear you, but the problem is exactly what Sally is saying here. I've seen parents give a baby in a pram their mobile phone to keep the kid quiet, right? And Beyond Belief said spying devices, phones for kids and adults, diversity endangers innocence. I'm not sure there is an easy answer. I'm really not sure there's an easy answer, because I do genuinely believe that we need to be better protecting children. Actually, I do believe that, but I also am deeply concerned about people having to hand over ID when they don't want to, and they shouldn't have to. So I literally don't know. But anyway, let me continue with this, because I can see there's a lot of people out there who are contributing to the problems that we're dealing with. Okay, let me be clear here. On X, right at this moment in time, because I've been doing investigations on it this week, there are a pile of so-called patriotic accounts claiming to be British, and they're based in India. They're based in India, and they are tweeting misinformation about the UK, and that is being rewarded and amplified by US-based South African Elon Musk. So who has the UK's interests at heart on the biggest social media platform out there, right? These people are literally tweeting divisive disinformation about the UK, and they're not here. A lot of these accounts are in India. That much I do know. And what we've also discovered this week is that the head of counterterrorism in the UK is actually claiming something similar, saying that foreign bots turbocharged misinformation during the riots after the fatal Southport attack. Now, I'm not on those people's side. You know I'm not, right? But the point is we also shouldn't be on the side of people who are spreading misinformation to make lots of money on X, right? These people do not care. They have no care and concern about the UK. These are all outside foreign bodies spreading misinformation about the UK, and that includes the head of X. And we should be concerned about that. And the reason I say that is because obviously, once you have the head of counterterrorism saying that this is what's happening, because it is actually what's happening, but they're using it, problem, reaction, solution. So I think we all have a duty to call out misinformation, which I do. I keep asking these anonymous accounts for their sources when they say outrageous statements. They never, ever give me sources. What makes me mad is when people leap on it and are like, Sonia, you're working against us. You know, even if they're wrong, I actually have had people say to me, even if what they're tweeting is wrong, it's still really what's going on. No, that is not the basis of anything decent. You have to get your facts straight. If we want to win this war, we have to get our facts straight. right? And we have to stop supporting these anonymous online accounts that are working against our best interests. Okay, so we have to be really, really careful with that. And actually, what we're actually hearing now is, as a consequence of all of this, British MPs are actually summoning Elon Musk to testify about X's role in UK summer riots. Now, I don't entirely trust Musk, as people around here know. There's big question marks over him for me. And again, I am deeply concerned about all of this being a problem reaction solution to eventually, I mean, we're as near as, damn it, operating in a police state at this moment in time. And a lot of that they are saying is a consequence of misinformation. Now, whether it is or it isn't is almost irrelevant. If it's there for them to use, it's working against us. In terms of Musk testifying, the first hearings will be in the new year. And the MPs are saying this all comes amid rising concerns that UK online safety laws risk being outpaced by rapidly advancing technology and the politicization of platforms such as X. To be under no illusion, they have never wanted us to be able to congregate and come together on social media. So they sure as hell are going to use every tool possible to try and close it down. And what we actually have now is a chilling effect, because they've been imprisoned people who should never have been imprisoned. Never. And that's what they've done. They've imprisoned people who should never have been imprisoned. They've curbed our free speech. They've sent out a chilling effect. And it is really, really problematic. And I'm not entirely sure that people like Musk are on our side. I'm not sure about it, people. Simon, why would you say, should we let our children get news from ITV instead? That's just silly, though, isn't it? Why would you say that? Why does it have to be misinformation or legacy media? It doesn't have to be either or. What about the truth? Just the truth, right? And yeah, they were pretty, what's that good at censoring COVID truth? Yes, they were. Do they, Helen? Helen says, Instagram do this already if they think someone is too young. Yeah, this is true too, what Chris is saying. Children would just use burner phones. Yeah. Stephen is back. He's had a long phone call. And George said parents should just use common sense. But also there are issues for parents. Have you ever seen Pester Power? Pester Power is a horrible thing when children because they see their friends being allowed this. So they will pester their friends to hell and back. But it's not parenting. No. And Cavan said, unfortunately, the smartest thing about a lot of people is the phone. Frank keeps asking, what would you do today? Interesting. No idea why he's doing that, but hey, I'm sure you're answering him in the comments. And by the way, talking about Musk, because I do have really serious, deep concerns about the role of X, right? In terms of increased laws in the UK and around the world. I have very serious concerns about that. And obviously we had Alex Kryl with us on Monday, who was talking about Elon Musk. But has anybody seen that Time Magazine, and this was after Time Magazine, a couple of years ago, made Elon Musk Person of the Year. Well, guess what they've made him now? The Kingmaker. Citizen Musk. The red cover is the current Time cover. A kingmaker of people. So the article says, how Elon Musk became a kingmaker. A kingmaker, for those who are unaware, is a personal group that has great influence on a monarchy or a royal in their political succession. And that is without them being a viable candidate. So obviously, Time is portraying Elon Musk as the kingmaker in Trump's election. And he certainly played a massive role, no doubt about it. But are there problems behind the scenes, by the way? Because 2 weeks ago, it was all celebrations for Elon Musk and Trump. Last week, Elon had a falling out with Trump's legal advisor. And this is never a good plan, but never mind, because Trump did show up for the launch of Elon's latest rocket, or did he? Anybody see that? Trump has either lost a ton of weight or he's looking quite different. Anybody seen that? Is this not misinformation? And you can call out Musk. What? Don't trust Musk, said Danny. Brit Indian said the Indians are happy to take Israeli money. Yeah, and I mean, this is a problem, isn't it? Unfortunately, I do not trust the issues of a digital ID, even though I like the idea. Absolutely, this is a problem. Foreign bots or psychological warfare unit. Yeah, and that is the problem with these big anonymous accounts. We literally don't know who they are. We don't. Anyway, he's a kingmaker now, which is phenomenal, right? And look at all those boxes ticked, right? Look at all those boxes. What impression is that, Cavan? Did I miss? The best sauces are tomato based. Ha ha ha. Craig is having one. This is Somerset Squirrel Craig, not the other Craig. What's this? And we need to stop entrenching on sides and ignoring the misdemeanors of those who appear to be on our chosen side. John, I completely agree with you. I agree with you. And yeah, Elon has lots of problems, doesn't he? He's like literally going in on Europe and England. And I think part of this is because he was not invited to a digital conference that he was invited to previously. He was not invited by Keir Starmer, which now actually there's been a sort of an apology issued, and they said it was a bit of an oversight. Yes, he is a transhumanist. That is the reality of who he is. Yes. And but Shug doesn't trust UK justice. Surely they can exactly. Surely they can detect these bots. You'd think so, wouldn't you? I mean, you'd think so with all of their advanced capabilities, and they don't seem to be able to detect who is real and who is a bot, because there are so many bots. Sass says Musk is on whichever side makes him the most money. Don't forget he wants to put chips in us all. He does, and we're not talking salt and vinegar. Right. So we shall see. But once you've been crowned the kingmaker by Time's an influential publication. So it's very interesting to me that they crowned him kingmaker. Right. I'm going to move on. Look, right. I like fortune cookies. Forgive me. I know I'm that type, aren't I? Anyway, what was interesting was in fortune cookies that we had last week, I got this message, right? Your present plans are going to work out. Well, my present plans, of course, are primarily this right here, and they're working out beautifully. Thank you very much. Nearly 2,000 new subscribers since last Friday when I asked more people to subscribe. Please keep subscribing. Greatly appreciate it. But here's the thing. It was like telling me once wasn't enough, and in the same fortune cookie was exactly the same message. I literally got the same message twice. I think that was reinforcing it, and I absolutely believe in it. What we're doing here, to me, is what I've been waiting to do really all my life. I just didn't realize it. I had to take the leap. I had to be prepared to stand on my own 2 feet without kind of like anybody else in the background, you know, in terms of like a platform or anything. And obviously YouTube is a platform, but this wake up is me, very much me, and what I want it to be. So I'm taking what the fortune cookie says, people. I am. Even fortune cookies are doubling down. Thank you beyond belief. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I love that. Even fortune cookies are doubling down. Isn't that brilliant? Growing slowly. Yeah, we're growing slowly, but surely, Randy. It's wonderful. Act on your synchronicity. I was born for it, Marcuson. I absolutely was. And I feel that with wonderful people like you around me. So thank you so very, very much. And can I just say, 2030, there's that year again. That's 2030, not 2013. 2030, there's that year again. Ed Miliband said, we will ensure that we're not selling new petrol and diesel vehicles from 2030. Ed Miliband, of course, is in charge of our net zero policy. Highly compromised man. Brilliant takedown of him by Paul Burgess on last week's show. And but we also hear, in addition to that, there's that year again, 2030, Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister. Remember, they promised before the general election, Labour pledged to deliver 1.5 million new homes over the next 5 years. Guess what? They're not going to do it now. They're not going to do it now. I mean, the thing is, right, anybody who believes a politician's pledge deserves everything they get, frankly. Because when I saw that, I was like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They've never acted on it. Thank you, HK. I want to bloom massively as well. Is that right? This is interesting. My partner says you deliver such bad news so positively. Goodness me. So here's the thing. I hope I don't come over as if I'm trying to water things down, but I do believe that there is too much fear porn out there. That's my fear. My fear is there's too much fear porn. So I'm always interested in getting to the truth, but believe you me, if there's something that I need to alert you about, I will, and I'll be standing on tables to do it. So anyway, yeah, they're not going to build those houses that they promised. That's not now going to happen. Communities Minister Matthew Pennycook admitted that the target set by Angela Rayner was incredibly stretching, just like she is. They're all incredibly stretching. I must bring back lovely Intel lady. I don't know anybody who does as good an impersonation of Angela Rayner as Intel lady, because she's just blooming brilliant. And can I just say, because it's really important, look at this. This, everybody, is, if it's going to come up on the screen, there it is, Nobia. Remember, I said that I want to be able to promote good businesses with decency and integrity, and for you to let me know if there's anywhere or anyone around you who you believe has withstood all of these pressures, and they show up again and again with integrity, and they fight against the draconian measures, whether that's jab mandates or lockdowns or whatever. And lovely Dave. Dave has been watching my work for a very long time, so thank you, Dave. I truly appreciate it. But he nominates Nobia and Sons Cafe in Barnard Castle. I'm going to give you the address: 19 Horse Market, Barnard Castle, DL12 8LY. Closes at 5 p.m. And the telephone number is 07825 136 421. And Dave wrote, you asked on the show for details of businesses that defied the authorities during the nonsense. I would like to nominate Nobia and Sons, a small family-run cafe owned by Nobia, a lovely Ghanaian lady who produces some gorgeous fusion food. After she was allowed to open again after lockdown, she allowed people in the cafe without masks or the need to fill in a form to say if we had been jabbed or not. She is also an attendee at our local stand in the park. The council were not happy and gave her a lot of grief afterwards, insisting she file paperwork with them, which she had already done some 3 years previously, or they were going to close her down. Well, thank goodness she survived. They've survived. And if you happen to be in the area of Barnard Castle, then please visit this lovely place, because I really think that we need to take care of each other, right? So honestly, let me know about your businesses, whatever part of the world it is. Doesn't just have to be the UK, because we travel, right? We're people who travel. So wherever you are in the world and there's a decent independent business who stands up to be counted, let me know about them and I will happily plug them. Yes, I will. Well done to you, Nobia and Co. Well done. And let me move on to geoengineering. I got so much geoengineering. I think I want to introduce, first of all, a video, if I can find a video. Let me see. This, I copied this over. Lovely Sarah, chemtrails in Scotland. Can you hear this, everybody? Let me take this out. Make sure I can. So Sarah kindly sent us a video. Let's have a listen.
Comes out and dissipates relatively quickly.
So let me go back to the beginning on that. Right, check it out.
Now that's a contrail. Comes out and dissipates relatively quickly. That is a contrail. Those are not.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Spot on, Sarah. Thank you for sending us that. I think it's always really instructive to be able to see them side by side. And we've got quite a lot to share with you. So here is lovely Sharon. Sharon took this Harvest Moon night. And there you can see it. I mean, the sky looks beautiful, save for all those lines, right? And Sonia, another Sonia, said, I sat on the beach in Deal on last Friday evening at 5:30 p.m. I wanted to enjoy the full moon. Look at this. Check this out. The beach was empty. The sea was beautifully calm, but my attention was stolen by all the lines in the sky. And it was only the other day that I was thinking to myself about why don't they do it at night so no one would see? Maybe they want us to see. Anyway, here's my pictures. Those are Sonia's pictures. And what's interesting, the reason I was prompted to remember the geoengineering is Dave pointed out to me, does anybody know this? That when you go on to Google Earth, I've got this right, haven't I, Dave? Dave said, right, are you aware that Google Maps Street View has a feature which allows the user to choose images from years gone by, right? And here's some of Dave's images. And the bottom one is actually from 2014. The top two were taken in Darlington. Is that correct? Chemtrails in Darlington, Wednesday, 13th of November. That's the top two. But the one below is from a Google Street Map of 2014. What do you make of it, people? What do you make of it? What do you make of it all? What do we make of any of this, what's happening in our skies? And John from Norwich also sent us some pictures as well. And I do appreciate all of this. I think it's really important for us to keep cataloging this and showing this. And one of the reasons that I show the effects of weather manipulation on here is because nobody else does it. Certainly not legacy media. They do their very best to ignore it. And I think it's really important to catalog it. So please keep sending me from all around the world, literally all around the world. I think it's really important for us to capture it. And so, yeah, thank you, John from Norwich, for showing us those. Thank you. The agenda is in full effect, people. The agenda is in full effect. And yeah, keep sending me your geoengineering images. I appreciate it. Let me go to the comments. It's been happening since the 1800s. Get a business infantry. Oh, that's something else. What's that? How much they get paid for this? What's that? Where are these planes, drones taking off from a landing? Says beyond belief. The halcyon days when the sun was yellow, now it's like an LED white light, says Dr. Kim. I hear you. Awful, isn't it? Awful stuff. And here's something that's online, okay? And I'm going to turn to you, our gorgeous viewers, for some assistance with this, right? I want to put this online here, right? This is Murray from Australia. Said, I found this online. Please, can you do a deep dive? I tried to send you a video, but it's too big to send via email. These are screenshots. So here's what's being suggested online. I've seen the TikTok, by the way. Thank you, lovely Murray. So here's what's being suggested online. That is, of course, an image of Jimmy Savile, prolific child abuser, man who had sex with dead bodies, awful man, procurer of children for the British establishment and beyond. And what is being offered up here is, because the image of the young boy on my right here is Keir Starmer when he was young. And what people are suggesting is the young boy in front of Jimmy Savile is Keir Starmer. Now, I'm not convinced. And some people have, so I did do a deep dive, Murray, by the way. And so some people are saying that in the background is Josephine. Josephine is Keir Starmer's mum, Nee Baker. She was a nurse. And one of my contacts said to me, are you aware that Josephine Baker, Keir Starmer's mum, worked at Stoke Mandeville? Now, I can't source that, but if she did, that would be curious, because obviously the hospital that Jimmy Savile worked at as a celebrity and fronted was Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And I don't think so either. I'm not convinced it is. I don't know. It's one big club. I don't know. I don't think it is. And no, Soul Sand, we're not necessarily suggesting that Keir Starmer is his child. We're not suggesting that. But LB said nothing like him, not the same nose. Says that I don't think it is him, actually. But you see, this is also, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. And I'm so grateful for Murray sending it to us, because it's really important that we keep tackling this stuff. Yes, he had the keys to Stoke Markeson, and that was how he was able to access the dead bodies. Yeah, absolutely. So Murray, my sense and everything that I've picked up so far is that it isn't him. But I will revisit this should I need to. Okay, that's not him, but there is another one on the net that is him. What, Gary, with Jimmy Savile, are you saying? Please send it to me. Nothing would surprise Shug. Nothing at all. Nothing would surprise him. And kids, want to know how to become instantly cooler? I'm going to tell you. Take your first name, take the first letter off, and take the last letter off, right? So I did that. And what I came up with is Oni and S. I think that sounds much cooler than Sonia Vanessa. Oni and S. So that's the theory. The idea is that you take the first letter off your name and the last letter, and your name becomes instantly cooler. Yes, instantly cooler. And I do think Oni Ines is much cooler than Sonia Vanessa. What's that? God bless him, whoever he is. Yeah, exactly, Humphrey. That's literally what we should be saying for that kid, right? Exactly that. Exactly that. Right, we're coming close to the end. I'm sorry, but talking about Savile should have a warning beforehand, says Danny. Really, Danny? Why is that? Like, seriously, why is that? And the reason I say why is that is because anybody who comes to watch this show knows that we're going to be talking about stuff that may not always be easy listening or hearing. And I think that if I only start issuing trigger warnings for Savile, what about all the other multitude of things that may be triggering for people? So that's my only issue. That's my only issue with that. But I do take your point as well. It's a C name. Yeah, I'm not dealing with my surname, Shug. I'm just saying my first names. There you go. Just have my breakfast. Oh, Danny, I take your point. Danny's just had his breakfast, so fair enough. Okay. Anyway, I will continue to deep dive on that. Is there anything I've missed before I get to our last point, which is actually based on a viewer's email? And is really rather lovely. Let me just check that everything is in hand. So as I say, yes, thank you so much for continuing to subscribe. I truly, truly appreciate it. Nearly 2,000 subscribers since last Friday. You people are amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love you to bits. I love you to bits. I do. Right. Let me just see that everything is covered just the way it should be. And then we can comfortably move on to the final thing. Oh yeah, by the way, has Rachel Reeves committed a criminal act, everybody? Because it would appear so. Remember, we talked on Monday about the fact that somebody that she worked with, I think at the Bank of England, said she didn't do the job that she claimed to. Well, this is really serious, right? And I was also complaining on Monday saying, why didn't Legacy Media take this up yesterday? Anyway, they finally are. This week they've started to. And here's the thing, right? You have committed a criminal offence if you knowingly provide false information. She's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She claims that she was an economist. That's what she claimed. And actually, it's looking increasingly like Rachel from accounts is literally more realistic. That has to be a criminal act. She's literally falsified information in order to be able to do a job which involves public funds. So what's that? Rachel from accounts. Rachel thief. Ooh, Milford. Ooh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, this is a good point. Mariana Springs should spring into action on Rachel Reeves. No, wait. Yeah, exactly. Head of complaints. Right. Offence to provide false information is why they never answer questions. Starver is a lawyer but doesn't know what a genocide is. The memes are hilarious. The memes are fabulous, Mel. Absolutely fabulous. I'm loving it. But on a serious level, right? This literally could be a criminal offence. And why not? Why not, indeed? Right. We're coming close to the end, people. My voice is going all funky, as it does. But that's all right, because we're in this together. Yes, we are. And I want to talk about... Can I take a glug of water before I do that? How are you all in the comments? Mariana Spring also falsified. Dilip, I did a deep dive into her. She has all the hallmarks of a plant. And I don't mean something green that needs watering. Okay? She has all the hallmarks of it. Thank you. Peace, Frank. Yes. Do you, Shuggy, you miss it? Finish on a high, Sonia. I will, Craig. I promise, right? So this is an email from lovely Michelle. Michelle says that she can't always get here on the live chat, but she always watches on playback. And we appreciate each and every one of you who watches, shares, subscribes, and all of that, writes to me and contributes to the show in any way whatsoever. It's very much appreciated. Right. Michelle wrote, Dear Sonia, what was done under the banner of COVID-19 changed me forever. That was when I woke up and realized how many lies we have been told. It shook me to the core. And I'm not even sure if I have recovered yet. I think a lot of people can relate to that, Michelle. I know I'm not the same person that I was. The problem is my family and friends didn't experience the same awakening. And 4 years on, relationships have been difficult. I've lost friends and we've reached an agreement in our family that we don't talk about any of it when we get together. And that includes at Christmas because they think I'm an anti-vaxxer and I know they fell for a scam. All of that said, I wouldn't change what I now know, but sometimes I feel lonely and wonder if that will change. Thank you for Wake Up. It's my twice weekly slice of sanity. Much love, Michelle. Now, I think there's a lot of people listening to that. LB immediately says, same here, Michelle. A lot of people listening to that will resonate with them, Michelle. People will be able to relate to it because it's been happening to so many of us. LL Cool J, not the one, presumably, but totally agree with Michelle. Same with me. It's crazy. What's this? Oh, same here, Michelle. There's a lot of people. Same here, Michelle. Right. Well, that's perfect. And let's get on with this then. So, Michelle, I'm here to tell you that awakening can be painful. Oh, yes, it can. Painful as hell. And I always recall the brilliant Khalil Gibran quote about getting awareness. And he said, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And that is exactly what's happening, right? A lot of that pain is not just that we look around and all the people that we were once close to are all totally alien. It's also we're breaking through our own barriers that have been erected during our lifetime. And it can be painful, right? I can tell you from personal experience, though, Michelle, you're going to like this, that eventually the loneliness morphs into something else and you start to meet more like-minded people. But first of all, you have to settle yourself. A lot of stuff has been thrown up in the air. It can be quite chaotic when you suddenly wake up after a lifetime of conforming to the status quo, right? But the thing that I absolutely know is that when you've had such an awakening, it's impossible for life to stay the same. And thank goodness for that, right? People around you might stay the same, Michelle, as you've seen, but they won't be able to be the same with you. Because once you change, everybody is forced to change in order to be able to interact with you. They are. Armin feels the same. You do. Yes. Yeah, Lorraine. Oh, Michelle, you aren't alone. But it's easy, isn't it, Lorraine? It's easy. And everybody, you know this. It's easy to feel alone because it feels hard when you're like the only one who has woken up in your family, right? Because so what's happened, of course, is that your worldview has changed and the spiritual core of you. And not least, it will be relieved that you're finally caught up with it. Because imagine what it must be like, going back to that conversation with Sian today, right? Imagine what it must be like for us internally. Our greater knowing deep inside of us at the core knows what's right and wrong. And imagine when we're going along with things which are plainly wrong, that is a complete disconnect with who we are inside. So the thing is, Michelle, even though you feel kind of like AWOL and from the people that you once were close to, you are actually probably in the most healthiest state that you've ever been in your life. And it's just a case of acclimatizing to it now, right? So what I want to do is look at some of the good and not so good aspects of a spiritual awakening. We've talked about spiritual awakenings before, and because that's largely what this is, though. It is a spiritual awakening, even though you are starting to make sense of the world and the scales are falling away from your eyes by all the mass lies that have been told to us. It is your spirit that is being reawakened. Yes, it is. The pros of a spiritual awakening. Well, it has to be better to know the truth than to indulge in a lie. That has to be one of them, right? And it's awful if you know something is happening and you acknowledge it. That's when you can actually do something about it. But it's painful. What is that saying, right? And that is the truth will the truth will, I'm going to paraphrase it badly, but the truth will liberate you, but first it will pee you off. Yeah. Because you suddenly realize what a lie you've been leading. So you can feel really disconnected and really disenfranchised. I get that. But the pros of it is also that sense of freedom. I'm sure people in the comments can really relate to this, that kind of feeling of liberation, right? Where suddenly it's like the weight of the lies that have been on you forever are lifted. Yeah. Those scales, they fall from your eyes, the weight takes from your shoulders. And there is all those wonderful feelings attached to it. You can also live better with yourself. You live a better existence. Stephen says, I get very lonely now. And I understand, Stephen, but already you're here and you're amongst like-minded people. So you're fine. You're safe, right? You're in an absolute, I hate to use that expression, but we're a safe space. We're a safe space pretty much for everybody, to be honest with you, because I do believe that all opinions count. But again, my disclaimer, I'm not bringing on anybody who I know is a compulsive liar or who is here to muddy the water. If I've done due diligence on them and I know they're a bad one, they're not coming on, no matter how many of you may ask me, because I also have to live with myself. But that's a whole story, a whole other story. And the cons of waking up, which is obviously what Michelle is experiencing, is that sense of isolation, right? A conflict with loved ones is awful. A feeling of being at odds with the world, like what the hell happened? For a time, you can literally feel like this kind of square peg in a round hole. There are a lot of conflicting feelings that come with it: confusion, despair. But along with all of that comes enlightenment. And sometimes it's like a slow dawning. Some people, they don't just have the epiphany and they wake up. Sometimes it's a slow dawning. You notice something's wrong. You notice that a lie was told, and then it's like, oh my God, if that lie was told, then what about all these others? So it can be a slow dawning, right? But I want to address this. Cheeky Sprite said, I think we can all relate to that. I red pilled during C19. Now this brings me to the next point, and that is ultimately, if I had to go back in time, Michelle, and choose whether I would have taken the red pill. And obviously, the whole idea about the red and blue pill comes from the Matrix. The red pill was the idea that you would see past the illusions, that you would understand the true nature of reality in the world, or the blue pill, which would keep me in the illusion and experiencing ordinary reality. Well, if I had to go back, I would take that red pill every time, no matter how difficult or isolating any of it could be. I would rather know than not know. I would. So it's got to be red every time. Okay. Obviously, as I say, the red and blue pill, they're metaphorical choices from the film The Matrix. And what was interesting, of course, was Neo, Keanu Reeves, was offered the choice by Morpheus, the kind of mysterious guru played by Larry Fishburne. And Neo chose the red pill and becomes aware of the Matrix's oppressive nature. Now, it seems only right for me to draw on the movie. And don't get me wrong, I know there are a multitude of problems with the Matrix movie, not least that the two brothers who made it now claim to be two sisters. But I believe this quote is iconic and it stands the test of time, and it has become part of popular culture. So I'm going to use it. And Morpheus said, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that's why Wake Up is here, folks. Oh, yes, it is. To keep going down those rabbit holes in search of a Warren. And Michelle, I hope you feel a little less lonely, because all of these wonderful people, look at this. I'm going to show as many as I can, right? Me too. Love to Michelle. Michelle. And ditto, just all same here. I mean, it's all the way down. Michelle, you are not alone. You are far from alone. There's all of us for a start. And although Conjure Laboratory says, I declare that I am sound asleep, I don't think so. Not with a thumbnail like that. I don't think so. Same with all of my in-law family, Michelle. So I think a lot of people feel the same way as you, Michelle, but there's nothing wrong with that, because bit by bit, we're finding each other, aren't we? I'm going out into the world. I'm finding our tribe bit by bit, and I will bring them back and join them up with the Wake Up tribe, because, you know, I think it's really important for us all to link up as much as humanly possible. And that is exactly why Wake Up is here, folks, to keep going down those rabbit holes, as I say. And I just want to thank everybody who's tuned in today, whether live or on playback. Thank you for all your suggestions. Thank you for all your images. Keep them coming in. Thank you for sending in your questions, even things like the Keir Starmer, Jimmy Savile thing. It's really good. I like to get your feedback on it, because if it's being discussed on the internet, I love to be able to put it to our viewers and say, what do you think? What do you think? You've seen it on the internet. What do you think? Awakening is painful, Stephen. Yes, it is. So thank you all, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, of course, to our two wonderful, glorious mods, Soul Sound and Crazy Bunny. They are wonderful. Every day is an awakening, says Heppelwin. That is a wonderful note to leave you on. Thank you all, everybody. I will be back on Monday. God bless you all, or whatever bless you all, whatever feels good to you. But Michelle, you are far from alone, and it's fine. It's not always going to be like that. You are just bedding in, my darling. And sooner rather than later, it will make a lot more sense to you. Everybody take care. I will see you on Monday. Love you all.